Chapter 15. Hector waved to Frankie as he slowed Chromefoot to a stop. He put the car in park and met her on the lawn with a kiss. "I missed you, she said, smiling. "I've been thinking about you all morning." "That doesn't sound very conducive to guiding impactful historic tours," she replied with a knowing face. "Don't get me started on work today," he replied as he dropped her bags in the back seat. "Okay, well, you're about to hear all about my stuff for at least the next 2 hours, so that actually works out quite well for me," she joked with a pleased tone. "Is Renee gonna watch the house while you're gone?" "Yeah, it should be mellow. He's probably just having Melissa over for the weekend." "I got us a hotel in Vegas, by the way," she said. Hector bounced from his seat as he engaged the ignition. "What?" "Yeah, don't stress. It's my contribution to the trip. It'll be a funny Vegas night before we head out to the mountains." "Where?" "It's a surprise, bud." "I like this," he said as she buckled her seatbelt. "Especially because I had something more spontaneous in mind that probably would have backfired." "I know. That's why I had to take things into my own hands. I found a place that looks more low-key and off the beaten path. With the holiday tomorrow, I'm guessing tonight might be a bit over the top along the strip," she said with the satisfaction that came with planning ahead. "Holiday?" Hector asked. "The 4th of July?" she replied jokingly. "Oh shit, that's right. Sorry, today's been nuts. So we can stay in and rest tonight, or we can get out and walk around. Whatever works. I wanted to have the option for fun, but I want to be respectful of the trip too." Chromefoot floated between the freeway lanes, weaving in and out of the open spaces. Holiday traffic compounded, and Frankie pointed out the passenger window to identify the empty dirt space off the 210 freeway where they'd sat with tall cans just weeks before. Hector felt a rush of life sweep through him with thoughts of their experiences together. Driving to Vegas would usually take about 4 hours, including stops for fuel and restrooms. For the 3rd of July, Hector added an additional 3 hours to the driving time. Gas station stops alone would take 30 minutes due to the crowds and congestion. The drive across the desert on the 15 freeway was a game of patience and restraint. The first city of the high desert was Victorville, but Hector never felt like much progress was made until passing through Barstow or Baker. From Baker until State Line, the highway rose and fell in massive desert stretches. Cars sped along the 2 lanes and in between the cargo trucks. It wasn't surprising to see the more impatient motorists occasionally utilizing the shoulder lane to pass the slower groups. As soon as a given pocket of congestion would clear, the surrounding traffic would accelerate at breakneck speeds. Every motorist on the 15 was eager to bypass the empty desert. Summer nights in Vegas were all hot wind and suffocating heat. Hector and Frankie cabbed to the strip and walked in and out of the electric casino sea. Slot machines rang and LED screens flickered at them from all sides. Because of the heat and the humanity of the city, the hotels tended to smell more like public restrooms than anything else. Hotels with the best HVAC system smelled fine, but Hector couldn't get the primal smells out of his nostrils after he'd noticed them. He wasn't able to relax much beyond a few tequila shots that he hoped would bring about an easier spirit in him. But the shots only served to push him further into his thoughts about the remainder of the trip. Frankie could tell he was falling deeper into his head and suggested they return to their room for a good night's sleep. On the walk back to the hotel, the lights of the strip reflected off her long hair blowing in the hot wind. She smelled like casino cigarettes in the blow-dryer temperatures. Her posture was tranquil and relaxed, and it reminded Hector how much he wanted to spend his time with her. In the pitch black of the hotel room, Frankie rolled toward Hector. "Can you tell me about them? Your mom and your dad?" "Concha and El Bigote," he replied with a chuckle. "Those names are amazing. Is that what you called them?" She giggled. "No, that's what they called each other," he answered. "My mom was always reading. My dad was always reading next to her. They were at work more than anything, but when they were home, they were either reading or playing music. They were both quiet, but art was what could open them up. Neither of them were very demonstrative with their affections, but they loved each other so much that I could always feel it. That feeling gave me something like a stability or a foundation, Yeah, she spoke out in the darkness as a siren passed by on the street below. They kept an FM radio on in the kitchen all day and all night, and I can't remember many times in my childhood when either classical or jazz wasn't playing at a low volume above the sink. "They sound cool," she said before exhaling into a more relaxed position. Christmas, Thanksgiving, July 4th, and everything in between, there was music playing. What did your mom like the most? She liked jazz, and my dad liked classical. We had this piano, and they both could really play. They had skills. My mom played the piano like a pro, and my dad had crazy skills on the violin, too. And you never learned to play anything? Nope, he laughed. I listened to them play, and I went out skating instead. What did you like? What music? They played a lot of different things. They liked pop music, and they loved vintage cumbia stuff, too. Organ sounds like Juan Torres. But mostly they raised me on Beethoven. I guess I used to react in a big way anytime they played his music when I was a baby, so Beethoven just stuck around. It was always on. So this explains our visit to Pershing Square a bit more, doesn't it? She joked. Yeah, they'd take me to that statue as a kid, when I was really young. I was scared of it, he said, shaking his head. But I always listened to Beethoven. I loved it all, and then a few months after I started skating, my dad brings me this thrifted VHS tape. It had that section with Pat Brennan skating to Moonlight Sonata, and like I told you, it was like discovering treasure. From then on, I didn't have time for anything or anybody that was pulling my focus away from skating. That's around the time when I met Noah and Fams. And it's so wild that once I'd taken on that focus, I meet these two other dudes that are exactly in sync with the same things. Hold on, though. You don't listen to Beethoven now, or at least I can't remember you ever playing any Beethoven since we've been hanging out. I'm just taking something like a prolonged break from it. Beethoven just reminds me of too much shit. It reminds me of good times that, since they died, have almost inverted into all these feelings of frustration and anger. Frankie was quiet in the dark. But can I tell you something? He asked in the darkness of the hotel room. Yeah, Frankie replied as she shifted her arm against his. Just the way you are, Frankie. Even when I could only hear your voice in the dark by the piano, something about you started opening me up again. She'd begun snoring, so he kissed her and rolled over to fall asleep on his stomach.